Hello everyone, this is Greg from the Game Fanatics. I'm here with Vivek, author of The Fifth Beatle on Dark Horse.
Thank you so much.
Here at C2E2 on Saturday. How are you enjoying the con so far?
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. You know, we were here last year, and that was before the book came out. So we were talking about it, and we were excited about it, and it's so awesome to be back. And now the book is out.
Right.
You know, so
and the book's amazing.
Thank you.
I've read it. I've been a Beatle fan since I was born. I was listening to the Beatles as I was growing up. Where did this come from? Where it's like, okay, why did you say, okay, now we need to write a book about Brian Epstein?
Yeah, so much like you, I grew up loving the Beatles, and I was in business school, dreaming about working in entertainment, and I believed that the Beatles and Brian were the team that kind of wrote the playbook for the pop music business.
Right.
So I thought if I'm going to work in this field, I should study the lives of the great entertainment visionaries, and I should study the life of Brian Epstein. And I was kind of stunned to discover that there was so few information available about him. So first of all, I was intrigued. I was like, why is it so hard to learn about this guy?
Why is this man such a mystery?
Yeah, you know, and I started to uncover the business stories, which I was after. You know, like how did he get the Beatles a record deal when no one wanted to sign them?
Right.
How did he come up with the suits and the haircuts? How did he convince Ed Sullivan to book them when a British band had never made an impact?
Right.
You know, never made an impact in the United States. Those were the stories I was initially after.
Sure.
But it was uncovering the human side of his story, which I'll be honest, I wasn't initially chasing. You know, but and in brief, he was gay. I mean, you've read the book, so you know.
Yes.
You know, he was gay at a period where it was against the law.
Right.
He was Jewish at a time of pervasive anti-Semitism, and he was from Liverpool. And Liverpool, prior to the Beatles, had no cultural influence.
So he really had pretty much about every card stacked against him.
That's exactly right. And I want to say, like, I've never had that degree of obstacles in my life, but that's something I could still really relate to. You know, being a young person of Indian origin, wanting to write graphic novels and produce theater, you know, you don't see a lot of people of my background doing those kinds of things.
Right.
So that's why the Brian Epstein story was so important to me, and it inspired me so greatly to do what I have done, and that's why I believe it needs to be told with the world, because I believe that if other people know this story, they will be equally inspired.
Right. A lot of people are very familiar with the Beatles, obviously. Well, they're one of the greatest musical acts of all time. But a lot of them don't really, they see the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan, but they don't realize the steps it took, in the background to get them there. But,
that's right.
All the deals and everything, and so how did it wind up with Dark Horse? Like you had this idea about, okay, I got this idea, but now what do I do with it? How did it wind up here with Dark Horse?
So I come out of the music industry, and I've always been a big believer of do-it-yourself. I always tell bands, don't wait around for a record label to sign you. Just make your own record. Especially with the technology of today. So following that kind of mentality, I said, let's make the book on our own. So I raised some money. I contacted Andrew Robinson and Kyle Baker, two amazing artists.
They both.
They did a breathtaking job with the art, and they signed on, and we just started making the book. So the truth was, we weren't looking for a publisher, but word got out that we were doing it. Andrew and Kyle are incredibly well-respected artists, so the comic community sort of pricked their ears. And it is Beatles related, so anything that's Beatles related it immediately gets some degree of attention.
That's what spiked my interest. So.
And so we were in this wonderful situation that publishers started calling us. And I met Michael Martin, who is Dark Horse's head of sales, at Book Expo several years ago, and he said, "Are you looking for a publisher?" And I wasn't playing hardball. I was being honest, and I said, "Actually, we're not." And he said, "I'd love to talk to my CEO, my publisher, Mike Richardson, about it," and he did. And Mike flew out to New York and met with me, and we hit it off. And Mike's a huge Beatles fan, and I'm a huge fan of Dark Horse, so it was kind of an honor to have Dark Horse interested in my book, and it just kind of all came together.
So what was the research like? I mean, this event that happened over 50 years ago. So, and back then he was just a no-name store clerk. What was it like trying to find these pieces of the puzzle, the research?
Oh, it was fascinating. And as I said, I started this 21 years ago, and I like dropping that number for two reasons. One is I turned 40 last year, so I can literally say I've been working on it more than half my life. But the other reason is putting in perspective. 21 years ago, there's no Wikipedia.
Right.
There's no YouTube. There's no Google.
Right. There's dial-up.
That's exactly right. So there's one excellent book about Brian Epstein that's been out of print for decades called The Man Who Made the Beatles, which you can find now quite easily on Amazon Marketplace or Abe Books or any number of used book websites. But back when I was doing this, there were no used book websites. So I had no choice but to do interviews. So I had to call people who knew Brian and just said, hey, I'm a student. I'm a young guy who's the little he knows about Brian Epstein. I think I've been incredibly inspired by, and I'm trying to learn more. And these people, they were all a little wary at first. They wanted to make sure I was who I said I was. And I said, I'm not a journalist looking for a scoop. I'm just a young guy interested in Brian. And slowly but surely, these folks all started opening up to me, and they all became good friends of mine over the years, over the past 20 years. And that's how I started to learn about his story. And that really is why so much of this story is an untold story, because I know that it was stories that they had never told anybody, and they told me. So
awesome.
So I'm very proud to be telling it in the Fifth Beatle.
Like I said, everyone knows, John, Paul, Ringo, but I mean, if you remember, Brian, he was there. He got them those gigs in Hamburg that they needed to get, then eventually making Sgt. Pepper and everything. But if Brian Epstein had been along, do you think the Beatles would have been the mega hits they were today if Brian had been there?
I mean, I'll be honest. In my mind, there's no question that the Beatles would not have been the massive international superstars that they became. Brian never got involved in their music, and they were brilliant artists. So there's they would very likely have still written some of those amazing songs. But the truth is, nobody would have heard them. I mean, the Beatles were not even the most popular band in Liverpool when Brian got his hands on them. And every record label passed on them. I mean, so there's no question that the world would not have heard of them.
There's no internet, no Kickstarter, no YouTube.
There's no way to get your music outside of Liverpool in the 1960s.
And Liverpool's not that big. It was just it's not even like a Chicago or anything.
I mean, people in London didn't care, much less people in the rest of the world. So I honestly have no question that the world wouldn't have heard about the Beatles if it wasn't for Brian, and I think that's why he deserves the title, the Fifth Beatle. The other side to a great piece of art is being able to experience it. It's like there's so many great bands that people will never hear, so many great films that people will never see, many great pieces of artwork that people will never see, unless they have someone who's going to put that out to the world. And so Brian did that for the Beatles, and that's why he deserves the title, the Fifth Beatle.
Nice. Do you know if Paul or Ringo have read your book?
I do. I'm very happy to say that I know that they all have signed off on it. We're making a film, and in order to get music rights, which we did, we had to get the sign off of all 4 members of the band, which means or all 4 stakeholders. So Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Yoko Ono, and Olivia Harrison. They all approved the book through AppleCore, the Beatles company, which allowed us to do a deal with Sony ATV, which is a long-winded way of saying we do have Beatles music for our film.
Which for a Beatles story, you kind of need that.
And we are the first and only film in history about the band to have secured their approvals. Other Beatles films like Backbeat or Nowhere Boy, if you look at them, they don't have any Beatles music. So we're very proud of that.
I remember the film I Am Sam, which had a bunch of covers, but not actual Beatles music.
And I Am Sam is not a film about the band. As you know, it's a film about a mentally challenged man who finds inspiration through Beatles music. We are the first film about the band to have had that, get those rights. So it's a great honor. But also going back to your question about the band, I'm also very proud to say that Paul McCartney is a huge supporter of this book. He wrote us a lovely letter saying how much he loved the book and how impressed he was with Andrew Robinson's artwork. So Paul, we count Paul among our fans, which is a huge honor.
That's great. Let's talk about the art for a bit, because the whole visual side, especially the recurring image of the Matador, the prevailing throughout the book, just really struck and resonated, because that makes so much sense. And it's so beautifully drawn, and the colors.
Thank you. So Andrew Robinson did an amazing job with the artwork, and Kyle Baker as well in the Philippine sequence. Andrew has just been nominated for the Eisner for Best Painter and Multimedia Artist, and the book has been nominated for as well for Best Reality-Based Graphic Novel. So if anyone in your audience is a comics industry professional, please encourage them to vote for us. It's voteeisner.com.
Definitely.
But Andrew, he put his blood into this work, and it shows.
It definitely
The artwork is amazing, and Kyle did as well. Kyle is a genius cartoonist, and he took that sequence that's inspired by the old Beatles cartoons, and he did an amazing job with it. I've been very honored to work with those guys.
Now, did you give him much direction as far as what you had a picture in mind, or how much was there? How much was your
You know, there was a bit of both. There were moments, sequences where I really knew kind of what I wanted, and I gave them a ton of direction. And then there were other sequences where I really didn't know how to do it. I had the dialogue, and I knew the tone and what the characters were going through, and I was able to kind of direct them the way a director might direct a scene. But I was really, needed them to tell me, like, you're amazing artists. How do we do this?
Right.
You know, so it really varied. It was a real collaborative process.
Cool. Now, one thing that I love about the story is, yes, you have the business aspects, but really the human character, person, who is Brian Epstein, really came across from each scene. You know, not just, okay, this guy made a deal, but you tell his passion and his, how much he believed in this band.
Yeah.
How strongly that came through.
Thank you.
I feel almost like I knew this guy, even though he died long before I was born,
Yeah, I mean, it's, I really believe that the medium of comics is the best medium to tell this story, because I was interested in telling the poetry of the story, kind of what you said, the human side of it, not just the facts, this is what happened, this is what he did for the Beatles, and the facts are important and they're inspiring, but the poetry to me, the struggles he faced, the Matador stuff, I believe that he was a huge fan of bullfighting. I did the narrative of the Matador running through the book is my creation as a writer, but it's based on truth. Brian was a huge fan of bullfighting, and I think that the best way to tell that narrative is through art, to actually see it, to know what it meant to him. So
it's one thing to say, he's watching the bullfight, but it's another to see him in the stands with the So you said it's been adapted to a feature film that's in progress.
Yes.
How did that come about? And how does that feel like? They want to make this that I wrote, really?
No, it's actually quite the other way around. Sort of is that it's I'm a producer by background, mostly of Broadway, but I've long wanted to do film. And when I envisioned this book, I really did envision it both as a graphic novel and as a film. And so it's actually, people don't realize that we've been developing the film for almost as long as we've been developing the book. And so I wrote the screenplay myself, and there's no question in the wake of the success of the book, the film, is been exponentially moving forward, and we are casting Brian right now. So if you come to our panel at 4:15, I'll be honest, we're not announcing who's playing Brian, but we will be giving some more information about how the casting process is going. But it's really, it hasn't been as though somebody came to me and said, I want to turn your graphic novel into a film. It's more that from day one, I've wanted to do both. And now I'm pushing the film forward. And Peyton Reed is directing. He directed Yes Man, The Breakup, Bring It On, and Down with Love. He's amazing. Bruce Cohen is producing. He's an Academy Award-winning producer for American Beauty. He also produced Milk and Silver Linings Playbook.
Fantastic movies.
Yeah, and he produced Big Fish for Tim Burton. So he's amazing. We have, we have the A-team.
Yeah,
it's
you really
amazing.
do. Great.
So it's a joy. You asked how that's kind of how it came to be, but how does it feel? It's a dream come true.
Yeah,
it's a dream.
Very cool. Being able to tell the story across different mediums and the different effects on different audiences. It's a great book. As a Beatles fan, let's see. And a lot of it I didn't know. You can't, Beatles fans, it's 62 to 64, but a lot of the really, really early stuff, I didn't know about him and the record shop owner, how he got connected with these four people and why he would give a damn. For really, almost like immature teenagers, just playing in their basements,
Yeah, I mean, he took them from obscurity, and turned them into the superstars we know. He always said the Beatles are going to be bigger than Elvis. They're going to elevate pop music into an art form. I mean, it's amazing what he did for them. And those were his dreams. They couldn't fathom being bigger than Elvis. And turning pop music into an art form. What does that even mean? But Brian saw it. I mean, now we are 50 years later. Everybody sees it. But at the time, it was unprecedented.
Right, even at the time, guitar music wasn't popular or anything. It was, at the time, in the early 60s, what was the popular music? Was it like blues still, or what was
I mean, Ray Charles was very popular. Elvis, as I said, was very popular. It was American pop stars, So it was a different time, you know, to when the Beatles wanted to experiment with Eastern instrumentation. Brian convinced the record labels to allow them to do that, and that was absurd.
Right,
you know,
these instruments we've never heard of on our pop record. What? Why? No.
And Brian didn't. He wasn't the guy that made the music, but again, he made that possible.
Right.
You know, the record labels weren't interested in that. They were a huge boy band.
Right.
You know, it would be the equivalent if the manager of One Direction told their record label, the boys are going to take some time off and go to Cambodia to study the gamelan. They'd be like, what? Are you crazy? No, they need to tour the world.
Right.
They're a boy band. But Brian made that possible, and in the wake of that, we got Sgt. Pepper's.
Right, which is one of the most influential albums of all time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's a shame he wasn't around to see them to a conclusion, But
it's
very
hopefully he's
see.
looking down from above, and we're getting his legacy out to the world. So.
It's a fantastic legacy. Also, the question: there's a charity you're pretty involved, Musicians on Call.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I'm a founder of a nonprofit organization called Musicians on Call. We use music and entertainment to complement the healing process. Primarily, what we do is we bring musicians to patient bedsides to perform for patients. So one-on-one room visits. So we deliver the healing power of music, is the way we put it. And it was founded in the wake of losing my mom to cancer. I was very lucky that being in New York City, I was able to give her the best medical treatment the world could offer, and yet her end of days were still pretty grim. And so I wanted to create something that would have made her end of days a little bit brighter. And that's what we do. And I'm very, very proud of it. It's more information at musiciansoncall.org. And thank you for asking. It's something I'm incredibly proud of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a piano player myself, so
awesome.
And it's the idea of getting these musicians in there. I know how much a song can brighten someone's day, especially people going through those really hard times. Could use any sort of encouragement and all of that. So.
Yeah, thank you.
So, anything else you'd like to say to our listeners? Anything else about the Fifth Beatle? Other than I really love it.
Thank you, thank you. No, I mean, pick up a copy, please.
Yes.
It's available wherever books are sold, as they say, but certainly online at Amazon, Barnes and Nobles,
darkhorse.com.
Dark Horse. More information is at fifthbeatle.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Fifth Beatle, and we're going to be announcing film news pretty shortly. So please follow us or friend us, and we'll keep you posted.
So, all right, thank you much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate it.